So I recorded this episode with Matt on his podcast called Product Driven. We spoke about what exactly product market fit is, and more importantly, how you can measure it to understand whether you have product market fit in the very early stages, like what are some of the best leading indicators, and later on when you actually have customers and you actually have growth. And if you don't have product market fit, we also spoke about what you should do.
That's product market fit.
Product market fit.
Product market fit.
I call it the product market fit question.
Product market fit.
Product market fit.
Product market fit. Product market fit.
I mean, the name of the show is Product Market Fit.
Listen, if you don't want the show to move up the rankings, you don't want it to get better guests, totally get it. You know what? Don't leave a review. Just don't do it. Why would you? But if you want to help out, if you want better and better guests, if you want to help the show move up the rankings, then take literally 5 seconds and hit 5 stars. Thank you.
I guess first question is, what in the world does product market fit even mean?
Yeah, so I mean, product market fit, it's so it's funny. I've done now 150 interviews with founders on the product market fit show, and I ask every single one, when was the moment that you found true product market fit? And I have 150 different answers. So I think the kind of most common thing people go to is product market fit is when you see it, which to somebody that has found product market fit is clear, and to somebody that hasn't found product market fit is exceptionally not useful. But in broad strokes, product market fit is the end of 0 to 1. And it's a spectrum, because you always have to be reinventing. The market is constantly changing, so your product is constantly changing. So that product market fit is not you're done with it and you move on. But there is certainly a 0 to 1 event where you don't have product market fit and then you do have product market fit. Product market fit fundamentally is when your product, the value that you are delivering, is exactly what the market, and specifically the market you're delivering into, so your ICP, your ideal customer profile at that time, is exactly what they want. You start seeing exceptional pull, clear demand. All of a sudden, your problems are less about how do I add more customers next month, and they're more all the other things that happen as a result of having so much demand. So
how do I keep up with this thing?
How do I keep up? Exactly. That ends up being more of your problems. But it's it's vague, it's nebulous. Yeah, it doesn't have it because it depends on so many different things. But at a high level, that's what it is.
Well, and for some people, it can happen in a very small scale, right? I built this thing and people like it, but not a lot of people know about it. But at least the people that do know about it, they're really excited about it and they really like it. But that doesn't mean we're on the front page of TechCrunch or anything, right? It doesn't mean things have went crazy. It just means that for our niche of who we talk to, we get amazing feedback and they really love it and they're raving fans, right? But that's different than these at mega scale VC companies.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think you can definitely look at some select KPIs that start to get a sense, besides the qualitative piece, besides the feeling that you have market pull. Some of the the earliest one that I like to look at is, and this makes more sense in a B2B setting than B2C, but demo to close. What is your demo to close ratio? It's such an early indicator of product market fit. If your demo to close is above 40%, that means that almost 1 in 2 demos you do close. And this is where, again, it depends on so many factors, because if you're selling to enterprise, that's just not going to happen. If you're selling B2C, there are no demos. So if you're selling product-led growth, there's no demo. So we're talking about a subset. But if you're selling B2B SaaS in, kind of the normal, let's say, quote unquote, normal price points, your ACVs are anything between 1,000 and 20,000, just to put a number on it. If your demo to close is above 40%, then it's pretty clear that the thing that at least you're pitching is resonating, because you don't have to do it 10 times over just to get one sale. You do 2 of them and they're like, oh my God, where do I sign? So that's one indicator. Another indicator is time to close, which obviously is related to that. But I've heard of founders that have closed 10, 20K on a call. They get one demo, 30 minutes, call ends, they sign, they wire. Again, that is a signal of product market fit. That's probably the earliest one.
I think that's a good metric, the 40%. I think back to my Stackify days, we were selling a application performance monitoring kind of tool to other software developers, similar to New Relic and Datadog and this kind of stuff. And At that time, our demo to close rate was about 30%. I would say we never actually found like true product market fit where we had like a massive pull from the market. We were always pushing, it was always a fight, but we were successful, we were growing, but we never found like that true product market fit. We were like lost somewhere in this valley. Do you see that a lot as well? Like a lot of companies,
Yeah.
maybe they're successful, but they just never quite hit product market fit.
100%. Like you can get pretty far without product market fit. And so then you might wonder why do you need product market fit? But like product market fit is the thing that's going to give you the venture type growth, right? The truly exponential, hard to control growth
Yeah.
that puts you on a path to like 100 million plus in revenue. If you want to
Yeah.
build like a $5 to $10 million business, you don't need like that level of true product market fit. And by the way, that 30% number you mentioned is interesting. I think it's pretty common, like 25 to 35% is where many solid startups live. And because you can go very far on that. I think if you're sub 20, certainly sub 15%, it's just going to take way too much work. Like, and your metrics all across are just going to stop making sense because the amount of marketing you're going to have to do, the much
Customer
amount of money
acquisition costs are
like
too high.
exactly, it's just not going
Churn
to
is
work
probably
out.
too high.
That's right. But that 25 to 35%, like you can create a real business on that. It's just going to be hard to have like the insane explosive growth that you
Yeah.
get if you hit like above 40%.
Well, and then my first company was a company called Vin Solutions. We were selling a CRM software to car dealers. And I don't know what our demo to close ratio was for that, but I guarantee it was over 40%. And we were growing faster than we could keep up with it. I mean, we had that pull. Like we were like doubling in revenue every year, rapidly growing. Like we couldn't keep up with the growth. And we definitely had product market fit. Now, at that point in time, I don't know if that terminology existed then. This was like over 15 years ago now, but we had that pull. Like we knew we had product market fit, and we could not keep up with the growth. Like we tried to raise VC money, we tried to do all that kind of stuff, but it was during the recession, and General Motors and Chrysler went bankrupt, and like we were in that era. Kind of, we were one of the early SaaS companies. Like today, we would have like it would have been a different world, but. Yeah, so I definitely lived through that, and that was wild times. Like we could not install customers fast enough. Like people talk about wanting to have that problem of like having more customers than you know what to do with, but it was terrible because I had 50 salespeople that were trying to sell our product, and we were very good at sales. But now, what were those salespeople doing? They were getting cancellation calls because we couldn't install our software fast enough. So now I get a bunch of salespeople that are angry because it's cutting into their commissions, and all they're dealing with is mad customers. Like we couldn't deliver the product fast enough. Like I lived through that. Like it was not a fun time.
But again, like, there's problems you're going to have problems regardless, but there's the problems you don't want and the problems you do want. Like
it was a good problem, but it was a problem.
Exactly. It was a problem, but it was a good problem. Like the problem you don't want as an early stage founder is almost like where I was talking to, I forget which founder, and it was like, I just always feel like there's so much more to do than I can do. There's so many fires to put out. Like I can't get on kind of even footing. And it's like, that's a good place to be, because if you're an early stage founder and you feel like you've got things under control and you've got time, then you probably don't have the pull that you really need to truly take off. Because if you have that pull, it's exactly what you just mentioned. Onboarding goes like crazy. Customer success goes crazy. Product goes crazy. Like there's fires in so many other places.
You're holding on to the rocket. I think it's important to note, you mentioned this earlier, there are a lot of very successful companies, let's call it, a lot of them are bootstrap companies that are, have demo to close rates that are lower. Maybe they don't have quite that same market pool, but they're still wildly successful, but they're probably not a great candidate, maybe even for you guys or typical VC, right?
I think that's part of it. I think then you also have to look at the other side, because like demo to close, if you want to be pedantic, like is less a measure of product market fit and more a message of like more a signal of like message market fit. Like you're saying something that people are like, oh my God, where do I sign? Then they actually get the product and they use the product. And then you've got to look at other things. And if you would just want to go through this kind of cycle of, okay, what sort of things can I look at to measure this? The Sean Ellis test is another like classic. where you go and you ask your users. This is before, like, retention will be the last one we'll talk about, but like, you go and you ask your users, how would you feel if this product no longer existed? And it's like very disappointed, I wouldn't care. And you want, again, 40% of your users to say 40% or more, 40% or more users say they're very disappointed. And that's another signal. And this is actually true product market fit, because at this point, they're actually using your product. And, demo to close, like, you could be a really good salesperson. You could promise the moon, and then you might have a really high demo to close. You could use a bunch of different sales tactics to just make sure people close quickly, and then they get the product. Now, once they have the product and they're using the product, that's a different story. Like, if they start churning like crazy because they're not happy, then obviously you don't have product market fit. If, on the other hand, you ask them this question and, almost half of them, hopefully more, but almost half of them are like, I'd be very disappointed if I lost this product, then that's a very good signal that they truly need it. And that's the sort of thing you want. That's the sort of thing that indicates product market fit.
Well, so we've talked about some ways to know that you have maybe obtained product market fit, right? And I think, like a lot of things in life, you don't necessarily understand them until all of a sudden you're there. Just like you don't know if you like the artwork until you see the artwork and like, oh my God, I love this one. I mean, to some degree, I think it's when you're there, you're there. But so then I think my question would be from your perspective and dealing with all of your portfolio companies, how do you help them get there when you're like, okay, we don't think we're there. How do we get there? What do we need to do?
Yeah, there's a lot. I think it really starts with understanding your ICP exceptionally well, because a lot of this stuff is really in the subtleties. It's in the day-to-day things that your customers do. And the entire objective of that is solving truly like a top of mind problem.
Pain.
Exactly. Like a true pain. So I'll give you an example that from my experience, like personally, when my last company was called Gym Track, we had a first version of the product that we ultimately had to pivot away from. And when we went to the second version of the product, we hired a new CEO, this guy, Rob Woodbridge, great guy, worked with him for a few years. We started to think about, our customers. Our customers at that time were gym operators. And one of the things we kind of realized was, it's interesting. You walk into these gyms, you see dozens and dozens of treadmills, of bikes, of equipment. And yet if you talk to the gym operators about how they're making these equipment purchase decisions, which, by the way, an average treadmill at a gym is like $15,000. So if you have, like, you're talking about millions of dollars of equipment spent per location, and many of these are chains. They have dozens, if not hundreds of locations, and they're recycling this every 5 to 7 years. Now you ask them, hey, how did you decide to get 30 treadmills? Like, maybe you could have bought 25, saved like $100,000 on that decision. And they're like, yeah, I have no idea. Like, I just kind of, I just thought 30 was like a good number, right?
We just fill up the room.
Like, whatever, right? But even deciding, okay, you could fill up the room with more ellipticals. Like, how do you know you didn't need more ellipticals? You know what I mean? Like, there's all this kind of makeup of the gym space that is completely just manual and just best guess, and yet it's real dollars. So our thinking was, man, look, if we could put these sensors on these pieces of gym equipment, we could track the usage in a gym, we could create dashboards, and then, especially for chains that have many locations, like, they could really understand what they should buy, what they shouldn't buy based on their demographic, based on all these sort of things. And honestly, like, it makes tons of logical sense. And we tested it. Like, we were, smart, let's say, at that point, in the sense that we'd been through it for 3+ years with the other kind of version of Gym Track. So, like, we kind of knew, like, the startup 101s. So we went to this conference. We sat down with 20 different gym operators, and we showed them what the dashboard could look like. We told them about the product, and they loved it. Like, they absolutely loved it. They're like, this is amazing. Like, oh my God, I wish I had this data when I just opened my last club. Like, this could totally change everything. The second day, we're hearing people tell each other, like, yeah, did you talk to the Gym Track guys? Like, wow, their idea is so cool. So it makes total sense.
Getting some pull.
We were getting some real pull, right? And so then we go out of there, we're so psyched up. We're like, man, this is insane. Like, we finally got it. We're going to close so many of these customers. We start calling, emailing, doing everything you need to do to actually turn those conversations into real sales. Dude, we made 0 sales. Zero, right?
Crap.
0. And so I'm, big story.
That's not how I thought this story was going to end.
All right. 0 sales.
But this is how the story usually does end.
This is how the story many times ends, because, like, if you go to the subtleties, right, which was I was mentioning, I mean, first of all, we're showing a product, asking for feedback, telling them of a problem and asking them if they have it. What you're going to get from there usually is, first of all, most people won't tell you you're an idiot. They won't tell you no. So most likely than not, you're going to get like smiles and nods. Now, in our case, a bit more than that. It was actually like they clearly resonated with it. They liked the idea. What they liked, though, was the idea. They liked that it was innovative. They liked that it was new. They liked that it could do something different for them. What you're actually in the like searching for in that phase is not whether they could like this idea. It's what's top of mind. Like, what are they actually struggling with? Because those are the things they're going to try to solve. Those are the things they're going to prioritize.
Today.
Exactly. And that's what they're going to pay for. And if I had asked them, hey, like, what's your biggest problem right now? They probably wouldn't have said figuring out what equipment to buy for my club. They would have said, like, I've got too many clubs opening next month. I don't have enough members. My churn is too high. Like, those are the big things. And so we ended up spending like a year plus trying to, because we had this kind of false sense of validation, trying to sell this product that was not top of mind. You're never going to get product market fit if you're not solving a top pain point.
Well, and so much of it is timing, right? Like, whether you started that company 5 years earlier or later, like changes the timing of, sensors and that being a top of mind thing, or maybe that's when there was a lot of roll-ups going on in the space or people opening a lot of gyms, or like the timing of all of it. And for my first company, we had originally built one of the best ways to take pictures of cars and upload them to the internet, to cars.com and AutoTrader and stuff, which didn't make any sense when most people bought cars by getting the AutoTrader magazine at the grocery store, right? Like, it wasn't as big of a thing. But then 2008 and 2009 happened, and we had the recession. All the car dealers stopped spending money on radio, TV, magazine, all stuff, because it was expensive, and everything went to e-commerce. So we were there at the right place at the right time. So it's like we had a little bit of pull, but then all of a sudden we have more pull than we could keep up with. And some for us, it was timing. Like we had laid the seeds. I think that's what we're seeing with a lot of AI stuff. It's like, they had the idea of using some AI, like 3 years ago. And then when ChatGPT came out, it like really propelled them. So I guess to finish your story, how did you guys figure this out?
100%. Well, like, and let me just touch on that, because like, first of all, I don't know how many people have told me like, oh man, I actually had the idea for Uber, like before Uber, right? Like, you needed the smartphone to be there. You need GPS, you need all these things. You know who I recently spoke with, Noah Glass, who's the founder and CEO of Olo, which is a 20-year-old company now, public company. I think their value is about like $1.5 billion, doing $300 million revenue. They took 7 years to get to $1 million in ARR. So their product, the original product, is around pick up, like, basically classic Uber Eats now, like you can pre-order something and pick it up, right? So, but they were doing this, like they started doing this in the early 2000s. And so people had like flip phones and they had Blackberries, and they finally moved to smartphones in the 08. And he told me, we started, like we had traction for a while. We actually started selling B2B SaaS to restaurants to enable them to take orders, because they started with the marketplace, all these sort of things. But what the big moment for them was, talking about timing, was, there's a bunch of things happening in the background, right? So like smartphone adoption is growing. That's a trend. Pizza places like Domino's are starting to leverage more and more internet ordering. So that's a trend. But he said, what the event was? The event was the day that Starbucks launched an app. He said when Starbucks launched an app and they went all out on this kind of pre-ordering, mobile ordering, everyone else was like, oh my God, this is actually happening. It's happening not just for pizza. It's happening for coffee. It's going to happen for every restaurant. And I don't have like a dev team. Like I can't go out and just build an app. So like, what do I do? Oh, here's Olo with this. So 7 years to hit $1 million in ARR. Now they do like $1 million a day. Right?
Yeah, they were ready.
That's crazy. No product market fit, crazy product market fit. But yeah, they were ready with it. And then when the market kind of changed a little bit, the product market fit was effectively instant.
To that point, they probably had product market fit the whole time. There just wasn't enough demand.
Correct. Yeah, they had a little bit. That's right.
Its own problem. It's like, hey, we built something, people like this thing, but there's just not enough demand for it, or I don't know how to reach enough customers.
Well, it was kind of this, we talk about like the early majority, late majority, this sort of thing, right? Like they were probably stuck in that like, innovators part of the market, the people who could see the future and could see like, mobile ordering could be a really big thing. This is a perfect product for that. But I think until Starbucks came out, the early and certainly the late majority, but even the early majority probably wasn't like fully bought in terms of that priority, that pain point. But all of a sudden it was like, wow, okay, we got to do it now.
Well, how did you guys figure it out with GymTrack?
So, ultimately we didn't figure it out. So after that, like we tried, the challenge is with the first product, which was much cooler. It was around, you go to the gym, everything you do is tracked with wearables, sensors, all this sort of thing. And in the 2013 era, before the Apple Watch, right, before this was mainstream,
Yeah.
and we raised like 6 million in venture, but then we spent 6 million. We had all these engineers who went through near acquisition. It failed. That's when Rob came into the picture as professional CEO, moved into like GymTrack V2, which is the analytics product I mentioned. Now we're 4 years into journey, 5 years into the journey. I certainly I'm pretty tired. My other co-founder had already left, and this thing got some traction, but again, was never solving a top pain point, so never truly took off.
Yeah.
And then it was just like you're stuck with this. You've raised at that point we've raised probably 8 million or so in total. So there's a pref stack we gotta think about.
Yeah.
We're already this venture type startup, so we can't just create this like lifestyle profitable business. And we don't have we certainly don't have product market fit. We're not solving the top of my problem, so you need to maybe kind of repivot. But now you start running out of money. So for me, at some point, I just decided that it was time to me to leave because I wasn't going to change the outcome of the business. Rob tried to sell the business. It wasn't really a great, space in terms of the number of acquirers. So ultimately, it was a wind down. Like we thought we were part of the 1% that actually exited when that acquisition almost happened. It turned out we're part of the 99% that fail.
Well, so looking back, advice for other people, at what point do you realize like, hey, maybe we've tried everything we can try, or we haven't received enough validation. We should, fail fast. Like, how do you think about that now?
Well, I think, one of the, here's the thing. If your product really isn't working at all, you have no traction, you're probably, if you're a decent founder, you're going to keep, iterating. You're going to keep trying new ideas. You're going to keep switching it up. If your product's totally taking off, great. Totally taking off. Your post-product market fit, you got other things to worry about. The challenge I find is that gray area is where you have some pull, you have some traction, but you don't have true product market fit. And I think the biggest issue, and in terms of lessons or whatever, things that I see is, I've yet to meet a founder that says to me man, I wish I hadn't pivoted that fast. Most of them are I wish I pivoted sooner. And that's because there's so much sunk cost, there's so much investment founders already made in their current product. The last thing they want to do is start over. But I've seen many founders who are just ballsy enough, or whatever word you want to use, just courageous enough to just say, you know what, this thing isn't the thing. I'm actually better off effectively starting over. One of the latest ones I had, he's from this guy, actually, also his name is Pablo. Funny enough, I reached out to him because I was like, dude, your name's Pablo, my name's Pablo, you got to come on my podcast. So he did. But anyways, he's a founder of Happy Robot. And, when he started, he went through YC, he had this product. They were doing 70K ARR. They had some traction in YC land. That's actually a decent amount of ARR. It was more than many others had. But he just realized there was something wrong. He just didn't feel like he had the pull that, founders that would come in and talk about, the pull that they had. He's he didn't have that. So he actually called his customers and said, guys, we're abandoned the product, right? Said, this is done. I'm sorry, I'll try and help you out so you don't, you're not kind of lost without, because maybe you needed this, but we're not going to keep selling this. We're not really going to keep servicing it. Went back to square one completely, totally different space, and ended up building an AI agents in the logistics space that answers calls from basically if you have a truck and you're trying to pick up loads, you call, but instead of a human answering, now it's their AI agent that answers. And they went from 0 to 2 million in a year. And he's his biggest lesson was if you don't have that kind of pull, if people aren't pissed every single time your product doesn't work, then you're better off continuing to look for something. The way I summed it up is an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. An ounce of research is worth a pound of marketing or sales or whatever, right? Investing that time up front is so hard, especially when you have something that's kind of working, but it's totally worth it every time.
Well, and if you're a good entrepreneur, there's an opportunity cost there, right? It's I'm sinking more and more time into this thing that isn't working, where I could be sinking this time into something else.
100%.
But that sort of sunk cost fallacy, and entrepreneurs being very kind of hard-headed, don't want to stop, right? We're going to go down with the ship. We're going to keep trying and trying and trying, but there's an opportunity cost. We could go do something else, but you got to stop doing what you're doing now, but it's hard to get us to do it.
Especially like when when you're the one that actually builds product, right? And you kind of get like some sense, you're like, oh, maybe this new feature, maybe this new thing, like if I just add this one more thing, it's going to be the thing that takes off. And like, honestly, it rarely ever is. And it usually comes down to the fact that you still haven't found that one thing that customers really care about, that customers really need.
Well, and the only way to find that out is to really talk to the customers and understand the market, not sitting in the basement building new product features that don't really matter. And that's something we talk a lot about on this podcast. Talking to customers, understanding what the customers needs is important. And I love, we talked about earlier, product market fit, like getting the pull. We talked about demo to close at 40%, churn. I like the, asking people like, what would you do if I took this away from you? Like, I think that's a great way to understand how much people really like your product.
Because one of the things there, because I spoke to Sean Ellis, who created that test, and talked about NPS, right? NPS is the other thing, Net Promoter Score, that people a lot of times think about when they think about, do people really love my product? Which is like, from 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend this to others? And if you have, a good ratio of 9 and 10s versus like 1 to 4s, then people love your product. And he had a great point, I thought, which was that NPS score, oftentimes you think you're measuring how much people love your product, but you're equally, if not more, you're measuring how much people like your customer success, your customer service. Because if people are treated in a really good way, they'll have great things to say about your company, even if maybe your product is like not that needed. And so you might have these kind of, and the opposite is true as well, but more so that like you might have false positives with you. And you know what, like I've noticed this, which is big companies, like Net Promoter Score, whatever it is, it's not that high. Startups' Net Promoter Score is very often very, very high. And I always wondered why. And it's because like the founder is front and center servicing customers, and you can believe that they're going way out of, the normal. Like I've heard founders that they were like the ones answering 1-800 numbers. They'll answer at 2 a.m. and they'll treat you like you're a star. And so obviously if you ask that person, hey, like, would you be likely to recommend this company to a friend? You're like, yeah, of course. Like they treat me so well. They're so awesome. That doesn't necessarily say that your product is an absolute must. Whereas the other question, would you be disappointed if I pulled this product, really has nothing to do but referring to other friends, which doesn't kind of tie into how they treat me. It's just strictly about how much do I really need this product. And so it gets a lot more precise into the product market fit question. Wow, what an episode. You're probably in awe. You're in absolute shock. You're like, that helped me so much. So guess what? Now it's your turn to help someone else. Share the episode in the WhatsApp group you have with founders. Share it on that Slack channel. Send it to your founder friends and help them out. Trust me, they will love you for it.